But, Robert, I got to tell you, it's good news that Clinton's in so much trouble, and I think they want to bring her down because they know Benghazi's coming out, but that would end up bringing down the whole government, so they want to burn her for smaller stuff ahead of time. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right there, Alex. And again, thanks very much for having me on. I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir, for your courage.
What I think about that, yeah, I think there's getting ready to be a big explosion, not just on the Hillary thing, but all the way back to Benghazi and prior to Benghazi. Where I come in, if you remember, we talked about this on your program about 2 years ago. From information received about Stinger missiles, about weapons from the direct commercial sales program, and also weapons being pilfered from Libyan bunkers that were going back into the CIA annex at that point. During that time frame, that was partially vetted, but not completely vetted like it has been over this email scandal with Clinton. There's much more than just this email scandal with Clinton in reference to the international gun running that has been going on, which eventually involved Ambassador Stevens and the death or massacre of Ambassador Stevens and the other of his crew. Where the information that I had received was covered on your program and other programs, and also posted on my Facebook page under the heading of international gun running. It was alleged at that point that there were Stinger missiles that had gotten into radical hands out of Syria, and that was a question that was being asked to the State Department at that time through a series of dispatches by the ambassador on what to do about that information, about what they should do. I mean, you know, so now what I wanted to bring up here, and I'm trying not to ramble, we'll try to work into this and be a little more concise. There's a thing called SCIF, and that's in the Pentagon. And basically what it is, it's like a clearinghouse, like a fusion house. It's a SCIF, SCIF, is a sensitive compartmented information facility. All information, for instance, like emails from ambassadors, intelligence gathering from whether it be NATO or France or Germany or whatever, all this information goes into a SCIF or a clearinghouse, like a clearinghouse. Those things are in the the Pentagon, the White House Situations Room. All this kind of stuff goes into what they call a SCIF. Those things are extremely sensitive. I mean, if you take any information out of a SCIF outside that facility, you're in violation, period.
It's a felony. It's espionage. Stay there. You've got experience with this. Walk us through it. 18-minute segment coming up. You're going to have the floor completely, Tosh, to lay this out from the inside so people understand exactly how criminal Hillary is. And now we know what you said 2+ years ago here. It's all Hillary out of the State Department. So Tosh Plumlee, Robert Tosh Plumlee, has laid it all out in articles and documents on his website. But here it is. Foreign governments gave millions to foundation while Clinton was the State Department. And, man, I mean, they'd give $1 million. They'd give $2 million, $2 billion total. And the next week, she'd take an export ban off. Now, who'd ever heard of this export-import, section of the State Department for weapons? Well, you heard it if you listen here. And Plumlee said that's how she was doing it. Not just allowing the shipments, she was doing it. So who knows what's in there? And that's why Hillary thought she could get away with this, is that so many companies and others are involved in all this arms smuggling that they're not going to want this to come out. So what does it mean that it is coming out? I'm going to give Mr. Plumlee the floor now for the next 16 minutes we have left in this segment to walk through how this works, how these documents go into these clearinghouses, what it means she had a secret set of books. Remember, the head of the EPA had to step down over fake email. This is all illegal. Wiping her server is obstruction of justice. Now she's saying, oh, it was classified retroactively. All the State Department internal communications are secret. They're all restricted. So, again, she's playing on the public's ignorance. Tosh Plumlee, go ahead and lay it out for us.
When we went on break before, we were getting into a skiff. When I came on your program back, I think it was 2013 or 2012, you were one of the first programs that I made the allegation that there were Stinger missiles missing from our arsenal. I made the allegation that there was high-impact weapons in Libyan bunkers that were not secure. I made the allegation at that point in time and it's recorded before the fact, and I did that for my own protection before the fact, because sometimes sunshine is the best defense people like me and others have. But at that point in time, the ambassador was also aware of this information and was sending a series of emails back and forth, but to the State Department. Now, the information that I had given to your program was obtained from a very sensitive NATO, or three very sensitive NATO sources in Ukraine or around Ukraine. And it involved these Libyan weapons that were getting pilfered onto the black market, and involved some of the Stinger missiles. I publicly went out and said that before the fact. Now, the way it works, that information had already been filtered back to the proper agencies, and it was within what they call a SCIF. Now, a SCIF is like a fusion center, a civilian fusion center, except a SCIF is a DIA, Pentagon, military, whatever, and it's like a clearinghouse where all information worldwide goes into different compartments. And SCIF simply means it's SCIF. And it's a sensitive, compartmented information facility. It's a facility. It's an intelligence gathering facility. Now, those facilities are so secure that even if you misplace your badge and you can't swipe to get into that deal, you've got to go through hoops, unimaginable hoops from different people in security. In other words, you've got to go to the security office, you've got to talk to this guy, you've got to do that, you've got to explain to them why you don't have your badge, you've got to explain why that badge does not work. I mean, before you can even launch and get inside that SCIF. Now, also, when you get ready to complete your tour of duty for that day, that hour at that SCIF, you are cleared out of that SCIF. If you take, I mean, they look in your, they look in your pants. In some cases, you've got to unzip your pants, a security agent, if he wants you to do that, to make sure that you're not stuffing like Fawn, putting stuff in her brassiere when they were working in her and Ollie North were working inside the Pentagon. So you can't get stuff out of a SCIF. If you do, or you even attempt to, you're immediately in violation of security. And if you have a security clearance, even without due process of going to court, that security clearance is immediately pulled at that point in time until you can substantiate and prove to security that you're not doing espionage or you're not taking that information out to sell it or divulge it to the media or whatever. In other words, if they even suspect that that's what you're doing, your security clearance at that point is suspended. Now, I'm going to pull it back to you and I. I came on your program and I released information that was currently going to SCIFs, but it hadn't got there yet. In other words, I jumped the gun. I got the NATO information before my sources said, hey, we're going to make our classified field reports, and you know what happens from there. Yes, I do. You won't believe what's going on over here, Tosh. We have C-130s on a daily basis coming in with tons and tons of arms and ammunition that are being assimilated out into bunkers in Libya. Wow, I thought they were already in bunkers. They're telling me that this information is going to CIA safe houses in Jordan, Turkey, and Pakistan. I'm thinking, wow, man, I can't report this until I know specific. You've got to give me more than just what you say. Well, a few days later, it came out. I came on your program, and it was not released at the SCIF first. You were the SCIF that information was released to. You and 3 other alternative media programs, that information was released at that point in time. if I still had a security clearance, at that point right there, my clearance would have been lifted. In other words, I would have been in trouble. I would have had to stand in front of the Attorney General and explain my actions of why I talked to you.
Now, Hillary's house of cards is coming down. It's now in the news that Obama is torpedoing her campaign. There's infighting going on.
All right. Now, at the same time that this information was going, the Attorney General and the DOJ was persecuting people for misplacing emails. So classified emails were being misplaced, or sections of those emails were being recapped to friends just in general conversations, and they were brought to trial. One of them is doing 3.5 years in prison because he released a sensitive email that was had been classified by a SCIF. Now, if I had taken servers home during my career and put them in a deal, I was immediately supposed to notify security, and they were supposed to take the Secret Service out to my house and make that house classified as a SCIF in order for me to be able to have that information in my possession at that particular house, whether it be on a non-classified server or even a government server. In other words, security had to be set up at my house in order to have that information at that location. My question I'm leading up to is, why is there a double standard in the security apparatus of this country that allows people, and I'm not going to say just Clinton, I'm going to say others. Petraeus got in a lot of trouble because he took a bunch of printed documents and put them in a drawer, and they used a sexual scandal and those deals to bring that man down and destroy his whole career for the rest of his life. Over what? He had a few papers, maybe 100, maybe 500, maybe 1,000, maybe a whole damn book, or maybe just one paper. But the point is, he had them in an unsecure facility. They were not in a compartmentalized security. They were scattered. Now we come up here and we've got a very high echelon, a Secretary of State, that now is sort of claiming someone else did this. She didn't know. Look, I testified and I was warned. Mr. Plumlee, if you discuss this outside this room, you will be charged. They even tried to file a charge on me when I was going to write a book, and that was way many years ago in 1980. And I was going to write a book called The Black Knights of Cuba. And then I was going to write a book called Deep Cover, Shallow Graves. And then I was notified, you've got to turn that manuscript over to them so that they can review it and redact, because you're giving up methods and procedures and you've taken things out of the SCIF that you wasn't authorized to do. Mr. Plumlee, you're going to go to jail if you continue on this road. Now, I don't want to get all hypered up here, but I also got IRS down on me for a total of 10 years because I was messing with SCIF stuff, classified information. In other words, I testified to committees. In other words, and the committees had classified my testimony top secret committee sensitive. And that meant that when I went back to review a year later, to make sure and initial each paragraph that information was right, they told me I couldn't see that information because it had since been classified and I didn't have a clearance. So therefore, I was gagged. If I went out and talked about what I had done through Iran-Contra, the tail numbers, the aircraft numbers, working with Barry Seal, working with all kinds of different people, talking about Santa Elena, Costa Rica, I just violated a whole bunch of them just now. So, you know, I mean, what does all that mean?
It means Hillary Clinton thinks she's above the law, but obviously she isn't. And when you talk about the State Department and arms smuggling and that Hillary was involved, that has now, years later, all come out. This is a big, big deal.
We're in a diversion right now, zeroed in on Clinton and emails that were taken, and classified emails that were taken out of the deal. The reason that they're zeroing in on this dog and pony show and the Trump and all this and stuff is simply for one reason, my opinion, and also documented. The Benghazi massacre was only because the ambassador found out about a very secret international gun running operation that it involved U.S. Stinger missiles and he had the opportunity to purchase those Stinger missiles back to get them off of the international market. So he could buy those Stinger missiles back. This is classified information that I'm talking about. This is the kind of information that is in those skiffs. Now, he had an opportunity to buy that back. So they was told to stand down. Shortly after that, he's dead. The reason that she's being thrown onto the bus and the reason for this diversion is that they will not let us get into the fact that the ambassador had uncovered this gun running operation and was asking the U.S. State Department how he should handle it. What should he do with this information that he had received from on the ground, boots on the ground informants, some of them American, some of them NATO. If you remember, NATO went into those Libyan bunkers to clear them out. Where did those weapons go, and what were those weapons? This is what they don't want us to know.
I want to talk about a perfect storm today. And the perfect storm I'm going to discuss is a really good perfect storm. I have prayed, literally, to be able to find a high-quality gun sponsor that is affordable and that is extremely well-made and effective that I can promote to my audience. About 6 months ago, we get contacted by Head Down Firearms, hdfirearms.com. Low cost compared to competitors, super high quality, super lightweight, super accurate, and the experts salivate over it and love it. Their entire line of 5.56, 308, and their accessories are simply amazing, and it's designed by battle-hardened vets that know what they wish they would have had. You need to go to hdfirearms.com today, or you can visit headdownproducts.com. That's headdownproducts.com.
What I wanted to bring up here, and I'm trying not to ramble, we'll try to work into this and be a little more concise. There's a thing called SCIF, and that's in the Pentagon. And basically what it is, it's like a clearinghouse, like a fusion house. It's a SCIF, SCIF, is a sensitive compartmented information facility. All information, for instance, like emails from ambassadors, intelligence gathering from whether it be NATO or France or Germany or whatever, all this information.
But Robert, I got to tell you, it's good news that Clinton's in so much trouble, and I think they want to bring her down because they know Benghazi's coming out, but that would end up bringing down the whole government, so they want to burn her for smaller stuff ahead of time. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right there, Alex. And again, thanks very much for having me on. I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir, for your courage.
At that point, during that time frame, that was partially vetted, but not completely vetted like it has been over this email scandal with Clinton. There's much more than just this email scandal with Clinton in reference to the international gun running that has been going on, which eventually involved Ambassador Stevens and the death or massacre of Ambassador Stevens and the other of his crew. Where the information that I had received, what I think about that, yeah, I think there's getting ready to be a big explosion, not just on the Hillary thing, but all the way back to Benghazi and prior to Benghazi. Where I come in, if you remember, we talked about this on your program about 2 years ago. from information received about Stinger missiles, about weapons from the direct commercial sales program, and also weapons being pilfered from Libyan bunkers that were going back into the CIA annex, was covered on your program and other programs, and also posted on my Facebook page under the heading of International Gun Running. It was alleged at that point that there were Stinger missiles that had gotten into radical hands out of Syria, and that was a question that was being asked to the State Department at that time through a series of dispatches by the ambassador on what to do about that information, about what they should do. I mean, you know, so now